Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And we have a lot to get to. We're going to kick off the program with some viewer comments. As a matter of fact, Rick's kicking off the show, and then we've got other comments as well. He sent one in late last night. We do have a lot of breaking stories, a few that Mark mentions that we'll get to in a second. We've got New York State issues galore. Oh, and we have a Karen quote, a quote of the week from Karen that fits in perfectly with the issue that we'll be talking about extensively, which is crime. It's been a common theme on the program lately. Well, really throughout every broadcast from the beginning. But let's get right to it. Good morning, Frank. This is Rick. Good morning. Netanyahu bombing Qatar, the broker of the peace deal between Israel and Hamas. He should have been a nuclear scientist. Rick calls him an idiot. Then Vladimir Trump is flying drones over Poland. Donnie, end these wars or there will be World War III. You should do this before everyone finds out about your real involvement with Epstein. No hoax, no Democrats. It's you, Trump. Release the documents if there's nothing there. And once again, Kennedy should resign. He's dumber than a bag of rocks. You go, Chicago. Protest, protest, protest. Trump, the bull in a china closet. Hey, that birthday picture to Epstein wasn't signed by Trump, but it was signed by someone that signs very much like him. Have you ever seen anyone create more talk about things than old Donnie? I can't keep up with it. It's like a raging river of lies and deception. And the scary part is there are millions of people that endorse his lies and deception. Tisk, tisk. Enjoy y'all, Rick. So that's Rick sending in last night. Comment from a different viewer. Good chilly morning, Frank. Yes, it's another cold one this morning. Good sleeping weather, a little cold going into work. Keep that in mind if you are on your way into work or school. Comment from a different viewer, and this is Mark. Good morning, Frank. Good morning, Mark. Poland shot down 8 Russian drones that flew over their airspace, and the Supreme Court temporarily allows the Trump administration to withhold millions in foreign aid. There's other court updates, but to Mark's point, Poland shot down drones that entered its airspace during a widespread Russian attack in western Ukraine yesterday, late yesterday. Well, actually early this morning. Today's Wednesday. Early this morning, with the NATO member calling the incursion, quote, an act of aggression. So Poland calling it an act of aggression. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, that's interesting. Is that really his name? Donald Tusk? The Polish Prime Minister, very close to. Anyway, said that he was in constant contact with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Tusk has called for an emergency meeting of the Council of Ministers at 8 a.m., according to a government spokesperson. Poland's military command said drones repeatedly violated Polish airspace during the Russian attack across the border in western Ukraine, but the operations against these violations had now concluded. Radar tracked more than 10 objects, and those that could pose a threat were neutralized, according to the command. Some of the drones that entered our airspace were shot down. Searches and efforts to locate the potential crash sites of these objects are ongoing, they said in a statement. It urged people to stay at home, I'm not going to try to name the regions that were most at risk. Quote, this is an act of aggression that posed a real threat to the safety of our citizens. Russia's defense ministry did not immediately respond to a request for comment by Reuters. Marco Rubio has been briefed, according to CNN reporter Caitlin Collins. The State Department did not immediately respond to a request for comment, though. NATO has yet to also comment on the incident. So there is an update, a breaking story from, well, it was published, my piece here was published at 3 a.m., so just a few short hours ago. Poland shoots down drones in its airspace, calling it an act of aggression. So thank you to Mark for mentioning that. Sorry, I got distracted by some traffic out there. Before we dive into politics, I wanted to mention this, and it really, just something to keep in mind. A clinical psychologist is warning that the trend of cutting off family members over political differences, it's often on social media called self-care. And I remember going back to, I want to say, Really, probably George W. Bush, but when I saw it be a trend was when the election right before Trump defeated Hillary Clinton. And CNN and outlets like that would very often around Thanksgiving, Christmas time, have the pieces, how do you talk to your crazy uncle about Trump? Or how do you put up with your family during these trying times? And very often it would be something like self-care, stay away from the topics or stay away from the family. It got aggressively worse, where it was, first it was kind of avoid the topic. Then after a few articles, it was just don't go. Just don't talk to your family. Cut them off. Well, according to the psychologist, it may actually fuel loneliness and worsen your mental health. According to Dr. Chloe Carmichael, cutting off your social support, cutting off your family members, creating loneliness and isolation for yourself is actually the worst thing you can do for your mental health. Carmichael, that's how you would say that, author of the new book, Can I Say That? Why Free Speech Matters and How to Use It Fearlessly. She argues that alienating loved ones over politics undermines family bonds, resilience, emotional well-being, and freedom of expression. Carmichael points to an increasing number of progressive young Americans who are choosing to sever ties with parents or relatives over their support of President Trump. And again, you've seen numerous articles like that. You've probably known people like that. Quote, it's unfortunate that we've seen an incredible trend of younger family members typically cutting off more senior family members, sometimes even their own parents. She connects this trend to research from Tufts University, showing liberals tend to report worse mental health than conservatives. According to her research, liberals are also more likely to engage in what she calls the 5 Ds: defriending on social media, putting distance in real life, dropping relatives, disinviting speakers, and declining to date, all over political differences. Carmichael said, I'm connecting these because we know that we're in an epidemic of loneliness, and we know that loneliness is not good for mental health. So if you're part of a political demographic that tends to cut people off over political differences, then it's not surprising to me that we are seeing that isolation type behavior. Now, according to Gallup, Americans' assessment of their own mental health has grown increasingly negative over the past 24 years. The percentage of young adults aged 18 to 29 who report excellent mental health has dropped 27 points in the past decade, with young women reporting some of the steepest declines. On social media, breaking ties with politically different family members is often framed as empowerment or self-preservation. Carmichael stressed that in cases of name-calling or physical threats, creating distance or boundaries is appropriate, but she cautions against using estrangement as the default response. Quote, what we need to learn how to do is how to be resilient and how to have relationships. Even if we disagree, we can have a diversity of opinions and our lives will be richer for it. She argues that the ability to freely express oneself leads to more authentic relationships and stronger social support, which acts as a buffer against mental health struggles. It also has a positive impact on the brain. So it's something I found interesting. I don't know why I wanted to kick off the program with that, but thought because there is quite a bit of political news that we're going to be getting to. Like this breaking last night, a Democrat will hold on to a vacant congressional seat in the Northern Virginia suburbs of Washington, D.C. in a special election seen as a referendum on President Trump and his sweeping and controversial agenda. Wow, that's one way to word that. Is it a surprise that a suburb of Washington, D.C. would vote for a Democrat? Why would that be kind of a bellwether or a referendum? Democrat Party nominee James Walkinsaw defeated Republican nominee Stuart Whitson in Virginia's left-leaning 11th Congressional District. Walkinshaw will succeed a late longtime Democrat representative, Jerry Connolly, who passed away in May after a battle with cancer. So that's a bellwether, or that is seen as some type of referendum on Trump because a Republican lost in a suburb of Washington, D.C., meaning the sort of swamp that Trump has went after lives, a deep state maybe, lives in those suburbs. We know that they are very often overwhelmingly Democrat because where they're making their money. They're making their money in Washington, D.C. Who gives them the most money? If you are a bureaucrat, how do you have the most job security? If you're a bureaucrat, you're going to vote Democrat. You're not going to bite the hand that feeds you. Heading into Tuesday's special election, Republicans controlled the House 219 to 212, with 3 seats controlled by Democrats vacant, as well as 1 held by the GOP. Waukesha's victory in the left-leaning district that Republicans haven't won in nearly 2 decades further narrows the GOP's fragile House majority. Well, that's a fact. It does, it's already a small majority. But why is that seen as a referendum on, quote, President Trump and his sweeping and controversial agenda? A Republican hasn't won there in nearly 2 decades, and this is some type of sign of things to come in 2026? I just don't understand it. We don't need to go through all the numbers on this, but Democrat National Committee Chair, can you name him? Quick. No, you can't. Ken Martin. He's trying so hard to make a name for himself, saying very radicalized things, even admitting that someone like a Mamdani or someone who espouses these kind of anti-Semitic views are still welcome in the big tent of the Democrat Party. He was also the one that cried because David Hogg? I think that's his first name. Hogg was receiving more attention than him. He said, Rep-elect Waukesha's victory continues the dominant trend we're seeing so far this year. Democrats are massively overperforming in nearly every race. So, wow. Democrats won a seat that hasn't been won by a Republican in nearly 2 decades, and this is a bellwether or a referendum on the Trump administration. There you go. That is the media's coverage for you. To Mark's point, there is quite a few not quite a few, 2 or 3 court decisions we'll talk about. I'm going to go through probably 5, 6, 7 just quick stories. Again, no segue necessarily, but I think that are worth putting on your radar. And then we're going to get into public safety, and we're going to talk about the North Carolina stabbing with some just that tragedy, that horrific attack. We're going to tell you some updates on that, some comments from the White House, from Pam Bondi and others. We are going to get to New York. Yes, rest assured, you set your alarm for a reason. We do have a Frankie focus sort of update. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the mayoral's race. I don't want to talk too much about it, but I think that, again, going back to these trends that we've talked about, we mentioned yesterday on the program, where socialism is viewed favorably by 66% of Democrats, according to Gallup. I think it's important to look at Mamdani's race not as just a mayor's race in New York City, but as something that we're seeing overall in the state and unfortunately in the country as well, where the Democrat Party, because actually Politico is reporting, no, Axios is reporting that Chuck Schumer got an earful at a recent Democrat meeting. So this kind of establishment old guard, maybe the Schumers, the Pelosi's, even the Cuomos, are no longer in favor. What is in favor in the Democrat Party is these kind of radicalized Democrat socialist type candidates like Mamdani, AOC, and others. So this is a national trend, something to keep in mind, something to watch closely. Also, since I mentioned New York, we do have a sort of update that's going to tie in with all of this from Elise Stefanik. No, she has not declared that she's running for governor yet, but boy, she sure sounds like she is. So we'll talk about that, all that, and much more. Hey, also, with all these cool topics, don't forget, tomorrow on the program, we are going to be talking with Joe Sempolinski, former congressman and current assemblyman. And why I say cool is there's so many national stories that he can weigh in on from his time in Congress, also statewide that we can weigh in on. And so we're going to have a very busy morning, and talk to him about the energy policy. He was part of that tour, some legs of that tour that Assemblyman Palmisano has been involved in to spread the word about the failed global warming policies of Kathy Hochul and one-party rule in Albany. So we'll ask him how the tour went. So stay with us. Just getting warmed up on, as a viewer said, a chilly morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Motorcycle riding season is in full swing, and there are more motorcycles on the road than ever before. Crashes involving motorcycles are often the result of a motorist failing to yield a right-of-way, or caused by a motorist who is distracted. And motorcycle riders are vulnerable and more exposed. So for them, crashes can result in serious injury or even death. Drivers and riders, we're all in this together. Please, be smart and pay attention to your driving. Share the road and watch for motorcycles.
This isn't your father's library. Create with the 3D printer. Release your inner audio engineer or sewing machine rentals, all with your library card. Go to getyourlibrarycard.com today.
This is a Collector Consumer Alert. Hi, my name is Jared Johnson with SueTheCollector.com. Did you know that repossessions are on the rise in America? If your car, truck, or motorcycle has been repossessed by an agent that broke a lock, assaulted you, or trespassed on your private property, you have rights. Call us for a free case review at 1-877-BAD-REPO. You pay nothing unless we win money for you. Call me now.
Let's make it every day better with the Hesselson Swim Spa. Hesselson's has 6 different swim spas on display to choose from in all sizes and configurations. Exercise and swim year-round in your own backyard and start living a healthier lifestyle. But for 4 days only, this Wednesday through Saturday, save up to $10,000 on the in-stock swim spa model. Hesselson's also offers 0% interest financing options up to 5 years. Hesselson's is your locally owned and operated swim spa store since 1955. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app. Your teams, your highlights, your scores. Get more of what you want. To the end zone. Stream your teams live. It's free with your pay TV subscription.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Viewer comment regarding the psychologist. The findings seem to me to be obvious. However, I wonder if her research was funded by our tax dollars. No, it does not seem to be. Now, I will say where she gets some of her information was, meaning that this is for a book that she wrote. So she's doing it for gain, for profit, which is a good thing, not taxpayers' dollars. But some of the research came from Tufts University, which would have been our money. So I don't blame her, but she did have to use the research. Okay, the courts have ruled that Lisa Cook can keep her job as the Fed governor while fighting Trump's firing efforts. And you guessed it, for now. As you've noticed the trend on this program, when the court decides something, it normally ends with ... for now. The federal court judge ruled that embattled Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook can remain at her post while she contests Trump's efforts to fire her over allegations of mortgage fraud. Washington, D.C.-based District Judge Gia M. Cobb wrote in her 49-page ruling at the preliminary stage, the court finds that Cook has made a strong showing that her purported removal was done in violation of the Federal Reserve's Act's for cause provision. All right, so we don't have time to do your guesses. But you could just guess yourself, and you can tell me if you were right or wrong. Who do you think appointed Gia M. Cobb? It's a very easy multiple choice. It's just 2. Was it Barack Obama, A, or was it Joe Biden, B? Well, all right, time's up. This time it was President Joe Biden. Cobb, an appointee of former President Joe Biden, ordered Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell and the Board of Governors to allow Cook to continue to operate as a member of the board for the pendency of this litigation. The judge determined that under the central bank's for cause provision, Federal Reserve governors can only be removed for behavior in office and not for faithfully and effectively executing their statutory duties. For cause thus does not contemplate removing an individual purely for conduct that occurred before they began in office. All right, there you are. For now, she is the Fed Gov, Lisa Cook. And as Mark had mentioned, Supreme Court has allowed Trump to temporarily withhold nearly $5 billion in foreign aid payments. So another really kind of different way of saying ... for now. The Supreme Court on Tuesday allowed the administration to freeze nearly $5 billion in foreign aid payments that President Trump moved to cancel in a rare pocket rescission last month. In a one-page order, John Roberts granted the Trump administration's emergency request to block a federal judge's September 3rd ruling that required $11.5 billion in funds previously appropriated by Congress to be dispersed. Roberts partially stayed Washington, D.C. District Judge Amir Ali's order for foreign aid spending, quote, subject to the president's August 28th rescission proposal currently pending before Congress. All right, so there you are. Just as an update, Supreme Court allowing Trump to withhold nearly $5 billion in foreign aid payments, ... for now. Now, that's what's led the Rolling Stones. I just mentioned this really quickly, not the band, the magazine, the Rolling Stone, to have this piece. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you have to note this in the back of your mind, because soon you'll hear talk, especially if Democrats win the House or the Senate or both in the midterm, the House, they'll be calling for stacking the court. Now, they're not going to do it while Trump's there, but what I'm saying is you'll start to hear more grumblings of that. They tried to do it there was talks of it during the Biden administration, but stacking the court to take away the conservative-leaning court. The Rolling Stone magazine said the Supreme Court is Trump's partner in crimes against America. Trump inflicted plenty of damage on the United States over the course of his first 4 months in office, first 4 years in office, but the most enduring blow may have been his radicalization of the Supreme Court. He appointed not 1, not 2, but 3 conservative justices, all of whom were hand-selected by right-wing activists. If this were Biden, and Biden had been able to choose 3 Supreme Court justices, do you believe it would have been worded in that way? Biden appointed not 1, not 2, but 3 liberal justices, all of whom were hand-selected by left-wing activists. No, you would not have heard that. But if you notice, the supposed conservative justices, which I understand what they're saying, but very often they will change what you would consider a conservative opinion. They will not always fall in lockstep with the other conservative justices, where that cannot be said for the left-wing justices. The remade court, see how this is very loaded, and they're almost making it sound as if this is unprecedented, that a president has a chance. They're just hoping that their readers, and this could very well be the case, aren't paying attention. The remade court quickly paid dividends, issuing decisions overturning Roe v. Wade and granting Trump immunity from prosecution for acts committed while president. Now it's actively enabling the restored president's fascist regime. Who wrote this? Andrew Perez and Ryan Board. So the Supreme Court is now actively enabling the restored president's fascist regime. The conservative justices have already made it harder for judges to shut down Trump's lawlessness and overtly unconstitutional orders, such as his efforts to eliminate the constitutional guarantee to birthright citizenship, and keeps allowing him to fire ostensibly independent regulators and government workers en masse without any basis. Worse yet, the court has decided that Trump can arbitrarily deport immigrants to third-party countries to which they have no ties, even to exceedingly dangerous countries like South Sudan, with little opportunity to challenge the government's decision. Anyway, so and I just mentioned this because there will start to be rumblings as they near, after the midterms, if anything happens there, or as they near the presidential election. If they think they have a chance of power, you'll start to see rumblings of a stacked Supreme Court, adding justices. It's on their wish list. It has been for a long time, the fact that they could not get it through under Biden, but it's not something that they have forgotten about. All right, we got to take a short break. Then we are really going through some 3 things that we cannot really have any segue to, but we'll then get into public safety and crime. So we've got a lot to cover. I see some comments coming in. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
I have been hugely blessed to have all this, and I want to share it. Safety first, goggles, mask, because the sawdust can do a number on it. They're welcome to try any of my tools. I just don't want them hurt. You gotta know what they're doing. Just a total blessing for me.
My name is Katie. I'm a Spectrum customer for mobile and internet, and I grew up on a farm and ranch in Nebraska, so I'm always cowgirling. Cowboy culture, you never want to pay more than you have to because there are so many expenses that go into farming and ranching. To have any efficiency on the farm, you need extreme connection and reception. I bet we save about $180 a month with Spectrum, and that's $2,100 for the whole year.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
Dante Brown, Big Fox News, Southern Tier.
It's a season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. So the Missouri State House, or Missouri, depending on how you like to say it, the Missouri State House approves the new Trump-backed congressional map boosting Republicans. This happening yesterday. It was to redraw the state congressional districts as part of Trump's push to boost the Republican majority in Congress. The new state congressional map was approved in a 90-65 vote, with a handful of GOP lawmakers voting against it. The so-called Missouri First map would split Kansas City into 3 GOP-leaning congressional districts and would help Republicans flip Representative Emanuel Cleaver's seat in the House in the 2026 midterm elections. Trump took to Truth Social to congratulate Missouri's incredible Republican state legislators for overwhelmingly supporting the much fairer and improved congressional map. It was my great honor to win Missouri 6 times, including primaries in 2016, 2020, and 2024, getting the highest number of votes for any office in the history of the state. And this new map will give the wonderful people of Missouri the opportunity to elect an additional MAGA Republican in the 2026 midterm election. The redistricting bill will now head to the GOP-controlled Missouri Senate, which is expected to approve the measure early today. The Missouri Senate must pass this map now, as is, to deliver a gigantic victory for Republicans in the Show Me State and across the country. I will be watching closely, Trump said. Thank you, Missouri. Make America great again. Republican Missouri Governor Mike Keogh ordered state lawmakers to convene for a special session on redistricting last month, shortly after Texas state GOP lawmakers passed a contentious redistricting bill that would potentially add 5 Republican seats to the House of Representatives. Why is it worded that way? Because who went through with it first? If you want to do the math and look at the time frame, who actually passed these redistricted maps? California was first. They signed it in before Texas did. But that's where we are at. Representative let me take a step back. Coey's announcement said, our Missouri First map and initiative petition reform now head to the Missouri Senate. Thank you to the bill's sponsor, Representative Dirk Deacon and Representative Ed Lewis, for their leadership and dedication to putting Missouri first. We appreciate the Republican members of the House for their efforts and commitment to ensuring that the values of Missourians are represented clearly and effectively. Okay, there's absolutely no way to segue. If you have not seen this, I would love to hear your opinion on it. I'm not turning into a conspiracy theory show. I don't even know if we call it that. Coast to Coast or something. But you can find this at the New York Post. The House Committee on Restoring Public Trust unveiled a shocking new video, which you have to see. It shows a hulking U.S. military artillery shell, a Hellfire missile, bounce off what is being described as a UFO as it flew over the ocean. The wild footage shared by Representative Eric Burleson from Missouri during the disclosure hearing on Capitol Hill shows a Hellfire missile fired by a U.S. military drone striking a glowing orb that flew off the coast of Yemen. The speeding object was paced by a 100-pound Hellfire air-to-ground round fired by an MQ-9 drone, which made contact and bounced right off, as shown in the radar footage from October 30th of last year. The footage came from a separate MQ-9 drone, which recorded the orb spinning after the missile made contact and continuing on its way. Wow. There's a server where there's a whole bank of these kind of videos that Congress has not been allowed to see, that the public has not been allowed to see. That's a Hellfire missile smacking into that UFO and just bouncing right off and kept going. What the heck is that? Yes, I know there I said heck and I didn't call it heck fire, but come on, let's get real here. 2 Air Force veteran whistleblowers also testified at the hearing and shared jarring firsthand accounts of witnessing a football field-sized rectangular UFO in a gigantic glowing red square. Former Air Force military police officer Jeffrey Nusetali experienced several UAP, that's what they're trying to call it now, I think, instead of UFO, unidentified aerial phenomena, incidents while stationed at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. Anyway, if you get a chance, it's at the New York Post. I'm sure it's elsewhere as well. The video is definitely worth your few seconds of time. See, I had no way to segue. But your thoughts on that? All right, another story not to segue into before we get into public safety. Oh, and we're going to have Karen's quote of the week, which ties in perfectly with our discussion on public safety. But just something a little bit different. First son, Barron Trump, who became somewhat of a superstar really during the campaign, really helping his father to understand the power of some of these podcasts and reaching a younger audience and some of the ways he could reach the younger audience that Kamala Harris wasn't really bringing in. She was not doing the podcasts. You know, when she did have something that would maybe attract a younger audience, like a Beyonce concert, almost as it was billed, Beyonce would show up to the rally and not sing, just give a little speech and leave, making many of the rally attendees very outraged, but I'll continue. First son Barron Trump is residing at the White House while he attends classes at New York University's campus in the nation's capital. The 19-year-old, who spent his freshman year as a prominent presence at NYU's flagship Greenwich Village campus, will continue his studies just closer to his parents. Not a bad dormitory to live in, the White House. NYU's DC campus accepts up to 120 students each semester, with courses meant for those pursuing careers in politics, public safety, history, economics, and journalism. Now, obviously he could go in economics, like his father, or he could go into politics like his father. Barron has spent it's just interesting, isn't it? To think which direction he's headed. Barron has spent his freshman year living in Trump Tower in Midtown while commuting to Washington Square and sometimes flying to Palm Beach, Florida to be with his dad at Mar-a-Lago. He's a little on the, we've heard this in the past, but Trump, back when he first started attending school, teased his youngest son's college choice. This was back in August. He's a little on the tall side. I will tell you, he's a tall one, but he's a good-looking guy, and he's really been a great student, and he does like politics. It's sort of funny. So could be headed in the direction of politics. Barron Trump moving into the White House as he starts his sophomore year. Which direction will he head? Politics, economic, public policy. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about public safety. Keep your waves, keep your comments coming in. As I mentioned on tomorrow's broadcast, live in studio, we are going to have former Congressman, current New York State Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski in as our guest. We have a lot to cover with Joe, energy policy. We're going to talk about local races as, yes, that does near. There are definitely some very important local races, so that's coming up on tomorrow's broadcast. He'll be in the 7 o'clock hour. We normally spend a little more time with Joe. He's kind enough to travel here, and so we normally spend a good amount of time because there's so much we can cover, whether it's on the federal side with his time in Congress, the state side because of his time now currently in the Assembly, or just the local as the current chair of the Steuben County Republican Committee. So we've got a lot to cover with Joe Sempolinski on tomorrow's program. All right. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Having a safe home is essential to many aspects of our lives. From a sense of community and safety, to physical and mental health, to economic security and independence. Most homes in our communities are not accessible and are not designed to accommodate the changes that come with age, including the risk of falling. The Older Adults Home Modification Program helps reduce the risk of falls, improves safety, and increases accessibility and independence. Through this program, Rebuilding Together works with older adults to provide no-cost preventative home repairs so our neighbors can safely age in place in the homes and communities they love. To learn more, visit rebuildingtogether.org/safeathome.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Check out our newsreels and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
If you or one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
As always, we thank Boss Security in Horseheads for bringing us that amazing view of historic Market Street. Why don't you give our friends at Boss Security a call today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Mark writes in, you should have Frankie focus on Frankly Speaking so we can all get a laugh at him because he is a joke. Well, let me say, there's a standing invitation. I would have Frankie focus on the program at any time. If you're not familiar, Frankie Focus is the mascot to the school cell phone ban. We've been talking a lot about it, and I actually have an update on this morning's broadcast. Yesterday we learned the casting process to be that mascot. We know that this costs a significant amount of money, but the governor is not telling us how much. But yes, I would be happy to have Frankie focus on the program. It would be a tough interview because I don't think he speaks. Wasn't that the whole point? They had to be mime-like if you applied for the job. So it would be it'd be an interesting quote-unquote interview. But yes, Frankie focus. Let it be known you are invited on Frankly Speaking. Comment from Jack. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Jack. I forgot to mention, thanks for letting us know about the Legends and Legacies Festival at the Notre Dame High School. I took the grandson, and he had a great time, bouncing and playing the free games, complete with a prize. Oh, that's wonderful. I heard it was a very fun event, a great event. We were glad to have the representatives on from Notre Dame High School. One of my coworkers had attended the event as well, said fun was had by all. So I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad that they could kick off their 70th year with that festival, and I'm very happy that they would be on the program with me. Okay, let's go to Karen's quote of the week, because this is going to tie in with our next segment. Should I do it? Yeah, no, I'm not gonna play that game where I keep putting it off. I am going because it's just too perfect. The Karen's quote for this week could be applied to many policies, but with judges' empathy turning toxic, bail reform is literally killing innocent citizens. Once again, I turn to the words of the great, and you can never go wrong with a quote from Thomas Sowell. Quote, social policy must be judged by what happens, not by what was promised. That's Thomas Sowell. Brilliant, right? Love his quotes. Let's read that again. Karen's quote of the week from Thomas Sowell. Social policy must be judged by what happens, not by what was promised. Perfect. Thank you so much. Speaking of, and I think it does tie in perfectly with bail reform and this kind of empathy towards criminals in a way. Did you hear, I know I've quoted Representative Jasmine Crockett quite frequently on this program. She is a rising star in the Democrat Party. She is receiving some backlash on social media. And this is typical. Now, she is very much about her public image. We learned that on her cell phone screen, her, what do you call that? Like when it's on, not silent mode. I'm drawing a blank on what that screen's called. But most people have maybe a picture of where you swipe to open up to your phone. People have a picture of family members, maybe their pet, maybe a beautiful scene, some picture they took somewhere. She has a picture of herself. We know she did that glowing piece for The Atlantic, but threatened to not allow them to print it, which it doesn't work that way, when she found out they were interviewing some of her colleagues and she couldn't pick and choose what was said. So, anyway, she was on some podcast called Grounded. She says, this is Jasmine Crockett, representative from Texas. I want to be clear that, law enforcement isn't to prevent crime. Law enforcement solves crime, okay? That is what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to solve crimes, not necessarily prevent them from happening per se. Home screen, thank you. Couldn't think of the word, thank you. Home screen. Yes, the home screen of her phone. I don't know why I drew a blank. It was a picture of herself. So let's go. At the time when we're talking about law enforcement, we're talking about the Democrats really in a bad situation where Trump has done a great job of essentially getting them to defend crime in the streets, right? In many instances, the J.B. Pritzkers of the world saying, no, crime numbers are down. But then you look at the numbers, it's still not safe, right? And again, I don't accept these crime numbers are down. People know it's just like when we were told Biden's economy was great, even though we couldn't afford food on our table, et cetera. People experience it. They know how they feel when they walk down the street. So yes, maybe in Washington, D.C., they are protesting. Maybe in Chicago, they're protesting. But you're telling me when they get to go out to dinner and sit at a table outside, or they can walk a few extra blocks that they couldn't before, or they can drive at night without their doors locked, they're not secretly happy that this is happening? But Jasmine Crockett saying, I want to be clear that law enforcement isn't to prevent crime. Law enforcement solves crimes, okay? That is what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to solve crimes, not necessarily prevent them from happening per se. Now, Crockett is one of the Democrat Party's most outspoken figures, so you've got to understand, too, she is a rising star. So is this the mindset of the Democrat Party? She made the statement during a discussion of how law enforcement was utilized by the Trump administration to clean up crime in Washington, D.C., and I've got an update on that in just a moment. Crockett said, I think it has been terrible, referencing the National Guard troops and various law enforcement agencies in Washington, D.C. I'm just going to read her quotes. How is it that we have a government that is hostile towards its people? Because that's what it is. We are in the midst of a hostile government takeover. And it is our government that is bringing the hostility. The lawmaker went on to explain how the Guard, ICE, and other law enforcement agencies aren't trained for what Trump is using them for, and then made her point that local law enforcement's job is not to prevent, but only to solve crime. Journalist Nick Sorter said, what in the heck, kind of. Jasmine Crockett, law enforcement isn't to prevent crime. Law enforcement solves crime, okay? That is what they are supposed to do. Just when I thought Democrats couldn't get any dumber, Jasmine Crockett opens her mouth again. Scientist and author Matt Van Swoel blasted Crockett, saying truly one of the dumbest statements ever made by anyone on planet Earth. Wow. Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard's Deputy Chief of Staff, Alexa Henning, said terrifying how stupid people get into higher office. Law enforcement officer and consultant Dion Joseph said Jasmine Crockett is wrong. It is our job to prevent crime. We just need more support. I didn't sign up just to wait for people to be victimized. So again, I want to be clear that like law enforcement isn't to prevent crime. Law enforcement solves crime, okay? That is what they're supposed to do. They are supposed to solve crimes, not necessarily prevent them from happening, per se. Jasmine Crockett. Karen gives us these amazing, brilliant quotes every week, and I give you Jasmine Crockett quotes. I think Karen's got the upper hand on this one. Governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, who over the weekend said he wasn't going to run for president. That can always change, right? But he said as of that recording of whatever program he was on, he was not running for president. He said in the National Guard going to these cities that it was theatrical and just beneath the office that he holds. The reality is what the National Guard has been doing has been things like raking mulch and picking up trash and painting fences. And so while the numbers that we have seen in Washington, D.C., they are impressive and they are important, we also know that it's very closely mirrored to what Baltimore has had during that same period of time. That what we are seeing from the President of the United States is not a crime-fighting strategy. It is a performative strategy. I want to be very clear to the President. We do not need the National Guard in our cities. We need a serious approach to crime fighting, and that is not that. Do you think you can take Democrat Governor Wes Moore at his word that we need a serious approach to crime fighting when his party that was very much instrumental in the defund the police movement, very much instrumental in the cashless bail, the bail reforms, et cetera, et cetera? So why do we need... So if you're going to say we need a serious approach to crime fighting, where was this before? Why have you not been serious before? Because if anything, you've been the quite opposite of serious as a party, going back to, even before the defund the police movement. I'll continue. I also have been very clear that we should welcome federal support. I've laid out the type of federal support that would be that useful during the president's proposed budget. He proposed cutting funding for FBI and ATF bureaus within the state of Maryland. It actually would be helpful if we could have more FBI and ATF support to get these illegal guns out of our neighborhood and out of our streets, that Congress could actually work to address the issues of ghost guns and getting these ghost guns out of our neighborhoods. That actually would be helpful. The President of the United States could not cut the $30 million that he just cut from violence prevention programs in the state of Maryland. That actually would be helpful. But sending in the National Guard to do municipal policing, something not trained for, is something that is deeply theatrical and frankly beneath the office that he holds. All right, we're going to talk about Washington, and then it's going to tie in with public safety in general. Because there is a lot, especially with that tragic, heartbreaking, and I don't recommend, you got to be careful what outlet you go to because they start to show the video, but of the Ukrainian refugee that was slaughtered on that train by a man who was out on cashless bail. He was out with having written a promise to the judge saying, I'll be back for my court date. We're going to talk about that as well. But stay with us. We'll be right back. We're Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Steuben County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 annual implementation plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.
The Nissan Rogue takes hit after hit. Punished under immense pressure. And exposed to excessive wear. We put it through the worst, so you get its best. Now get 0% APR financing for 60 months on the 2025 Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Murano.
Want to read about ancient wonders? Go to your local library today. But this isn't your father's library. It's the home of creativity. Release your inner audio engineer or face off a dragon in the D&D club. Make your clothing ideas come together with our sewing machine riddles. Create with the 3D printer or come to the library event nights to chat with those within your community. All with your library card. Go to getyourlibrarycard.com today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments. First up, just watched the drone video. All I can say is, wow, we need that technology for deflecting munitions no matter where the heck that thing is from. Haven't you seen enough of the old black and white alien movies where maybe we shouldn't be shooting at them? Maybe we should try to make peace. Does that make you nervous when you see the video? If you did not see the video, it is amazing. The Hellfire missile hits and bounces right off. Doesn't even stop the unidentified flying object from, it doesn't take it down or anything. It just keeps on its merry way. So I highly recommend it. It's at the New York Post. I'm sure you can find it elsewhere. Comment from a different viewer. Only to solve crimes, in reference to Jasmine Crockett's quote. What a crock. I like that. Nice play on words. Our good buddy Rick writes in, yes, Crockett quotes for the win. Glad you emphasized the likes. Hope all is well. Hope all is well with you too, Rick. Yeah, I've got to say, I guess I'm getting greedy. There could have been more likes, and I think there's only 2 solid likes, and I was a little disappointed. I think she can do better with how many likes. I do like that she, I'm not saying it the same way she did, that she ends with an okay at the end of that's kind of the idea, like, right? Okay. But thank you, Rick. Appreciate it. Hope you have a great day. All right, coming up. Oh, Karen writes in. So Karen had a great quote. And I had mentioned Karen writes in a great quote, and then I come in and give a quote of Jasmine Crockett. But Karen's quote was from the great Thomas Sowell, saying social policy must be judged by what happens, not by what was promised. Karen writes in and says, I won't be quoting Jasmine anytime soon. I would like to ask her if she has ever heard of protect and serve. You wonder where they come up with these ideas. You would think, it sounds like, according to that report, and I don't remember where it came out of, but that it's known that her staff, she doesn't really interact with her staff that much. And in normal times, or a normal congressperson would have staff kind of run through some things they're going to talk about. And when you spitball that idea to say that police aren't there, to stop crime, someone on her staff would have said, maybe avoid that one. That's not really how it goes. But in this case, she apparently did not do that, or her staff said, just go for it, because it sounds like it's a toxic work environment. So yes, I guess she has not heard of to protect and serve. And we only got a couple likes, 1 like. So I'll keep that in the pile in case we want to mention it later. All right. Trump dines out with his cabinet officials to demonstrate the D.C. safety after the crime crackdown. Trump's outing to Joe's Seafood, Prime Steak, and Stone Crab, that sounds delicious, an upscale establishment about a block away from the White House, marks the first time the president has gone out to dinner in the district since the start of his second term. We're standing right in the middle of D.C., which, as you know, over the last year was a very unsafe place. Over the last 20 years, it was very unsafe, and now it's got virtually no crime. I wouldn't have done this 3 months ago, 4 months ago. I certainly wouldn't have done it a year ago. This is one of the most unsafe cities in the country. Now it's as safe as there is in the country. Trump was accompanied by Vice President J.D. Vance, War Secretary Pete Hegseth. I like that they changed that now. War Secretary Pete Hegseth and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and urged everybody in the district to go out and enjoy the city. The restaurants now are booming. People are going out to dinner where they didn't go out for years. The outcome is really spectacular. We have a capital that is very, very safe. He also thanked the National Guard and D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser for working with his team. The president was greeted outside the restaurant by loud cheers from across the street and a smattering of boos. Several anti-Trump protesters heckled the president inside the restaurant as he walked to his table, yelling, "Free D.C., free Palestine, Trump is the Hitler of our time." Okay. And then they unfurled a small Palestinian flag. I don't like it. I don't know how you compare the National Guard in D.C. tying that in with Israel. But anyway, at least it's a different chant for once. The chants are always the same, it seems like. Free D.C., free Palestine, Trump is the Hitler of our time. A lot of ignorant rhetoric there, but nonetheless, at least a different rhyme. Obviously, the commander-in-chief, unbothered by the disturbance. The woman walked out of the establishment. They were led across the street by law enforcement. The dinner comes after Trump was pressed by a reporter in the Oval Office last week about his lack of outings at D.C. restaurants. And he shot back, "Do you want me to prove you wrong? I think it's something we could consider doing. Love to do it. I love the White House food, but after a while, I would like to go to a nice restaurant. It's safe." There you go. Showing off the success of the crackdown. All right, we've got to take a short break and sadly bring up some updates on that tragic stabbing in North Carolina. We'll talk about that towards the end of the program at the beginning of the next hour. Then New York State issues. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
This is the Collector Consumer Alert. Hi, my name is Jared Johnson with SueTheCollector.com. Did you know that repossessions are on the rise in America? If your car, truck, or motorcycle has been repossessed by an agent that broke a lock, assaulted you, or trespassed on your private property, you have rights. Call us for a free case review at 1-877-BAD-REPO. You pay nothing unless we win money for you. Call me now.
Let's get every day better with a Hesselsen's hot tub. Hesselsen's has over $500,000 of inventory that must be sold. Savings up to 50% off. Every hot tub in stock save $1,000 to $5,000 off Hesselsen's already low prices. Plus, free chemicals, free steps, free lifter, and free Bluetooth music. But for 4 days only, this Wednesday through Saturday. Hesselsen's, your locally owned and operated hot tub store since 1955. So Hesselsen's will be here for you today, tomorrow, and for years to come. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
Urkel, glasses. Nerd. It pays to know your nerds. If you guys didn't get nerd with me sitting up here on this show, 25 words or less.
Weeknights at 5 and 5.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horsehead. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We're going to wrap up hour number one because we were out of time with some great comments from viewers. Ken writes in, "I almost had a heart attack when I read a front page headline in the Star Gazette. It said Trump's big beautiful bill could save New Yorkers nearly $4,000 in 2026. A Star Gazette article that was mostly positive about Trump. It said New Yorkers could save about $26,000 through 2035, and that it will create about 66,500 jobs in New York. It had one paragraph that mentioned increasing the deficit and Medicare cuts. In fact, the entire paper, which is very small these days, only had one article that was negative against Trump, which was talking about toothpaste tariffs." Well, thank you, Ken. Thanks for bringing that to our attention and the savings from the one big beautiful bill. Comment from a different viewer before we wrap up this hour. "Good morning, Frank." Well, good morning. I know that you're not on social media much, but I'm amazed at how famous a person can become overnight. Most recently, there was a woman at the Phillies game demanding that a man give her a home run ball that she said was hers. Every other Facebook page is now about her. Before that, there was a CEO caught with his coworker at a concert. Instantly famous. After seeing the young lady who came from war-torn Ukraine being brutally slain on the train in Charlotte, the judges that let her career criminal killer go should be made famous. Their faces should be everywhere. I've never seen such terrible images as the terror on her face. It's unforgivable. Unforgivable is a perfect word, and yeah, I wouldn't recommend you watch it. I agree with you. The look of terror on her face is something you can't get out of your mind, and I would agree with you. Who they make famous, it makes no sense to me. But we've got some other comments coming in. We are going to talk about that story specifically that they mentioned. Then we've got New York State issues. So we've got a busy 1 hour left. Don't go anywhere.
Your tap water is delicious.
I know, right? It's this Culligan Smart drinking water system.
What do you think is going on in there?
I'm smelling a touch of chlorine.
Yeah, I'm detecting some PFAS.
I'm also getting notes of lead.
Perfection.
Sending it up.
Here we go.
Certified to reduce more than 70 contaminants, it's like having your own team of water experts. See the smart difference at Culligan.com.
Fall New York State is unforgettable. From breathtaking views in every hue to adventure around every corner. It's the perfect place to get away. But don't just take our word for it. Come and see it for yourself. New York State, everything you love. Plan your next trip at iloveny.com.
Big Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the Southern Tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I am your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. If you just joined us, it's only right to read, because some people tune in at 7 o'clock hour, I want to read Karen's quote of the week. So perfect. It's from the great Thomas Sowell. Social policy must be judged by what happens, not by what was promised. And that ties in perfectly with this story, this tragic, tragic story. The family of Urana Zertuska is demanding justice for the murdered 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee who was ruthlessly and randomly slaughtered in Charlotte last month. Zertuska was stabbed to death, as we know, by a repeat offender, DeCarlos Brown, who was out on cashless bail. The video is heartbreaking, and it will stay with you. I would not recommend that you view it. A family spokesperson issued a statement yesterday saying, "We are heartbroken beyond words. Irina came here to find peace and safety, and instead her life was stolen from her in the most horrific way. No family should have to go through this." Her relatives demanded that prosecutors lock up Brown and further address the broader crisis in public safety and systematic failure. It was reported, and I don't have it in front of me, but it was reported that she will be buried in the United States because of her love of the United States. The alleged murderer, his brother, blamed the system on this, letting his mentally ill ex-con brother go free on cashless bail. He said, "I think they could have pretty much prevented it then," referring to the lax terms that a magistrate judge set for DeCarlos Brown Jr. when he was released from jail for a prior arrest in January. Yeah, and his mother saying similar, but his brother saying, I didn't even know he had mental problems. You can't just let him walk free, especially because of mental issues. He can do it again. They could still treat him for his mental issues, but there are consequences for his actions. I think he should suffer those consequences. Pam Bondi, Attorney General, of course, Pam Bondi, has directed her team to federally prosecute DeCarlos Brown. Urana Zertuska was a young woman living the American dream. Her horrific murder is a direct result of failed soft-on-crime policies that put criminals before innocent people. I've directed my attorneys to federally prosecute DeCarlos Brown Jr., a repeat violent offender with a history of violent crime for murder, making it clear that they are seeking the maximum penalty for this unforgivable crime, and he will never again see the light of day as a free man. FBI Director Kash Patel added that the attack was a disgraceful act that should never happen in America. The FBI immediately surged into action to ensure justice is served and to make clear that violent criminals will never be allowed to walk free again. President Trump is committed to restoring safety to every American city, and I want to thank Pam Bondi for delivering the federal charges that will hold this perpetrator accountable. J.D. Vance admonished Democrats for scapegoating the system, and that's what they'll blame, the system, to avoid addressing violent crime in their cities. The vice president taking to X saying the big lie the Democrats told about violent crime is that it's systemic. and therefore no one's really responsible. If the system is to blame, then you find a bunch of nonprofits that don't do anything besides give jobs to underqualified radicals. The reality is that the gross majority of violent crime is committed by a very small group of people, and we should be throwing them in prison. As simple as that. The White House also rebuking the mainstream media and the left-wing media for ignoring the stabbing, much to that viewer's point, just like many on social media ignoring it. Perhaps the most shameful of all, the majority of the media, many outlets in this room, decided that her murder was not worth reporting on originally because it would not fit a preferred narrative. That's Carolyn Levitt. And she's exactly right, because this happened at a time when President Trump, like he is now, but is very focused on public safety and on crime. At a time when they were saying, many mayors and governors saying they didn't want him coming with the National Guard. And so this did not fit their narrative. So they couldn't report on this. This was not something they wanted to report on. Levitt added, many of the journalists in this room spilled plenty of ink trying to smear Daniel Perry for defending a subway car from a deranged lunatic in New York City. But none of those same reporters lift a finger to write stories about an actual murderer. What a great point. That's why Carolyn Levitt is doing such an amazing job. As Levitt pointed out, Brown Jr. had been criminally charged at least 14 times, including armed robbery, felony larceny, and breaking and entering since 2011. He also spent 5 years in prison stemming from a robbery with a deadly weapon charge. However, a liberal judge released him without bail following an arrest earlier this year, saying, quote, he simply had to sign a written promise to return for his court hearing. Think about how crazy it is to ask a career criminal, someone who by definition repeatedly breaks the law, to just sign a written promise and come back again another day. This is madness. This monster should have been locked up and Arena would still be alive. But Democrat politicians, liberal judges, and weak prosecutors would rather virtue signal than lock up criminals and protect their communities. Levitt highlighted the former governor, Roy Cooper, established a task force for racial equity and criminal justice in 2020, which was co-authored by then Attorney General Josh Stein, who is now the governor. That task force was co-authored by then Attorney General and current Democrat Governor Josh Stein and recommended re-imaging public safety to promote diversion and other alternatives to arrests. It also advised to de-emphasize some felony crimes, prioritize restorative justice, and eliminate cash bail. Now the North Carolina GOP, North Carolina's Republican House delegation, is demanding the firing of the judges who freed the accused murderer. Each one of the North Carolina's 10 House Republican members signed the letter calling for formal proceedings for Magistrate Judge Teresa Stokes for her removal after she released the accused DeCarlos Brown in January of 2025 based solely on that written promise. The letter states that she was released despite Brown's extensive criminal history. He was released despite Brown's extensive criminal history, which included at least 14 prior arrests, as we know. The letter states Mrs. Zarkuska's murder was not only a profound personal tragedy, but also a direct result of a failure of judicial responsibility. By releasing a repeat violent offender on nothing more than his written promise to appear, Magistrate Stokes displayed a willful failure to perform the duties of her office and engaged in conduct prejudicial to the administration of justice. The letter, addressed to Roy Wiggins, Chief Judge of the North Carolina Judicial District 26, said, we urge you to commence formal removal proceedings against Magistrate Teresa Stokes. We further request that the court conduct a thorough review of her prior bond determinations to assess the full extent of misconduct. But even after all of that, somehow Mayor Vi from North Carolina, who has made some very questionable statements during all this, won her Democrat primary on Tuesday, an election that was overshadowed by the past few days by the deadly stabbing. But winning yesterday, Lyle's response to the slayings has been criticized, and Republicans claim the mayor and other Democrats are too soft on people with criminal records. While not specifically criticizing the mayor, President Trump on Monday argued that the victim's blood is on the hands of the Democrats who refuse to put bad people in jail. So she winning even through all this. That's why you've got to keep in mind the importance of actually finding out who you are voting for. But tying this all in, because this is, let's face it, this cashless bail, we have the bail reform. Hochul tries to present it as if it's not cashless bail, but that's exactly what it is. Because of this, and numerous stories after numerous stories, and unfortunately, we've talked about this with the sheriff so many times, the victims that did not need to be victims, that shouldn't have been victims, because of cashless bail, because of bail reform. Well, Elise Stefanik, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who again, and we're going to tie this, we're going to go back in the full circle about what happened in Carolina, but I think this is important. North Carolina, this is important. Elise Stefanik, who has not declared that she's running for governor, though it sounds more and more likely every day that she will. She said that she would, it's not a matter of if, but when, and she would announce in November. She wants to link federal funds to bail reform. She has introduced a bill that would cut federal funding to states and localities that limit the use of cash bail. The bill is called the Keep Violent Criminals Off Our Streets Act, and it would prevent the Attorney General from giving Edward Byrne memorial justice grants to any government that substantially limits cash bail as a potential condition for every individual charged with a covered offense. The proposal has been met with criticism from Democrats and civil liberties groups who argue that cash bail is unconstitutional and disproportionately affects low-income people of color. So again, Democrats are, again, even after all of this, after how many stories, still willing to support the cashless bail idea. Let's read Karen's quote one more time from Thomas Sowell this week. Social policy must be judged by what happens, not by what was promised. How perfect. So U.S. Congresswoman, again, Elise Stefanik, Keep Violent Criminals Off Our Streets Act, and it would cut federal funding to states and localities that limit the use of cash bail. If passed as is, the prohibition would start on October the 1st. Stefanik said she and fellow Republican U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee are working alongside President Trump to end the cashless bail disaster, and that they can't allow arrested individuals who are awaiting trial to be released back onto the street to commit more crimes against their communities. Their proposal changes a 1968 law to end certain grants awarded to states or local governments that have introduced reforms to how suspects are detained by law enforcement before trial. Again, as I mentioned, it would the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grants would no longer be available. I'm not going to go through the history of that, but I thought this was a very important move by Elise Stefanik. The order directs federal agencies to find any grants or contracts that would be terminated in such places. When people are released without bail, they are permitted, even encouraged, to further endanger law-abiding, hardworking Americans. So this is a step in the right direction. Stefanik said her legislation would build on Trump's efforts and make them permanent. She added that under Kathy Hochul's failed leadership, cashless bail policies in New York pose a clear and present danger to the nation, and must be terminated. Now, it says here, for her part, the likely Republican nominee for Stefanik, the likely Republican nominee for governor in 2026, has called New York's pretrial detention policy a catastrophic disaster leading to a crime crisis. Democrat New York State Senator Julia Salazar, chair of the Committee on Crime Victims, Crime and Correction, described cash bail as unconstitutional. So again, they want to take that position. When we see these tragedies, the Democrats want to continue to take that position, that crime isn't that bad. If you're Jasmine Crockett, the police aren't there to protect. They're out there to solve crimes. The list goes on and on. If that's the position they want to take, even after watching Governor Hochul nearly lose to Lee Zeldin because Lee Zeldin ran on public safety, if that's the position they want to take, so be it. But you know what? I've got one more thing on this, and we got to get to New York State issues. How late? Just real quick. Glenn Reynolds, the last on this topic, but feel free, I see a lot of comments coming in. Irina Zaruska's murder exposes the left's utter incompetence on crime. National media, aside from this newspaper, meaning the New York Post, studiously ignored the heinous attack. Even Wikipedia, and we mentioned that we were ahead of the curve on this. We mentioned that yesterday. Wikipedia editors airbrushing the story. Why? Because they run interference for Democrats, and the story is political nitroglyceride. Not only did this brutal murder turn the Democrats' racial narrative on its head, it underscores and boosted Donald Trump's message on urban crime. We know all about the 14 arrests. But what this boils down to is a lengthy piece. You can find it for yourself at the New York Post, and it's definitely worth it. But maybe it's time, it says here, now that we've seen the sickening video, convincing people to ride the city's trains will be harder than ever. If DeCarlos Brown had been doing the hard time he deserved for the previous crimes he committed, Irina Zaruska would have gotten home safely after working her shift. She'd be alive today, and the mass transit riders of Charlotte and elsewhere wouldn't be looking over their shoulders for fear of a similar fate. That's your choice, and if you want a flourishing city, it's really no choice at all. All right, we'll read your comments when we come back. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking.
Want to read about ancient wonders? Go to your local library today. But this isn't your father's library. It's the home of creativity. Release your inner audio engineer or face off a dragon in the D&D club. Make your clothing ideas come together with our sewing machine rentals. Create with the 3D printer or come to the library event nights to chat with those within your community. All with your library card. Go to getyourlibrarycard.com today.
This is a Sue the Collector consumer alert. Hi, my name is Jared Johnson with SueTheCollector.com. Did you know that repossessions are on the rise in America? If your car, truck, or motorcycle has been repossessed by an agent that broke a lock, assaulted you, or trespassed on your private property, you have rights. Call us for a free case review at 1-877-BAD-REPO. You pay nothing unless we win money for you. Call me now.
We've had so many wonderful memories as a family. Dropping Shelly off at school, I prayed he wouldn't get stuffed in a gym bag. Missy might have been the one in Little League.
I'm asking the Lord to watch over my little girl. Well, while you're at it, ask him for a win. I got money on this.
But Georgie is the one who threw us the real curveball.
I got a girl pregnant.
Oh, no. Are you kidding me? We may not be perfect, but to me, we have the perfect family.
The Bix website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments regarding the murder. What in the world was the guy sitting right there thinking? Either he was deaf and blind or is a coward. The whole video doesn't look like anybody reacted, and even in the original reporting, it was almost like people didn't know what happened. There could be, using a different term maybe than coward, but I think that like you see subways in New York, it's gotten so dangerous that I do believe a lot of people become cowardly. And maybe that's too strong of a word. I think they're looking out, they're keeping their head down because it has become so dangerous. And look what happens if you don't keep your head down. Look what happened to Daniel Penny. Had to go through all of that. Because he protected his fellow passengers. So I'm not what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not supporting the decision of someone not stepping up to help. But that could be part of it if you ride on that mass transit every single day. But the video was weird because it almost seemed like no one knew as he walked through. I'm not sure. Again, I don't take the mass transit in these major cities, but that could be a part of it, that unfortunately the violence. I mean, for heaven's sakes, what was it? Someone mentioned it yesterday, but the violence, I was going to say, on the subways and on the mass transit. Someone mentioned this to us yesterday on the program, and if you look at the New York Post editorial board, 63 transit terrors with more than 5,000 busts among them, from crimes ranging from robbery to assault to sex crimes. 63 people with more than 5,000 busts among them. So I'm not justifying. That was the word I'm looking for. I'm not justifying. I'm just saying it could be the mindset that has been forced upon these people for taking mass transit. Continuing. Comment from a different viewer. Where are all the Democrats demanding knives be banned? Well, be careful what you wish for. I could see that coming up next. Mark writes in, what a waste of an innocent, beautiful girl that repeat offender stabbed. The judge should be put behind bars. Yes, I'm glad there's some push to have them at the very least taken off the bench. But Ken writes in a very good point. Democrat politicians, prosecutors, and judges aren't worried a bit. If anyone brings charges or sanctions to any of them, another activist judge will immediately stop the punishment. Yeah, and I'm afraid that I agree with you, Ken. I'm not afraid that I agree with you, but yes, you know what I mean. All right, let's change the topic because we've covered a lot this morning, and I know we've had some people mention Frankie Focus, so we do have a couple of New York updates that are important for us to get to. First of all, I do want to thank our friends at the Hornell Sun for giving a great write-up. I know I've mentioned this in the past about the September 20th unveiling of the historical marker for Dwayne Eddy here in Corning. So just wanted to give a big shout out to our friends at the Hornell Sun. Find out more at hornellsun.com. They do a great job. It's, as you can tell now with this piece, it's from all over the area. It's not just in Hornell. They also have a Wellsville Sun section of it as well. But if you aren't familiar with it, a couple things. We're going to have a guest on later this week about the unveiling. We have a lot of special dignitaries, a lot of special events surrounding it. It is September 20th at 2 p.m. That's during Corning's Harvest Fest, Gaffer's Harvest Fest. We're going to unveil the historic marker. It's not too late to be a part of the historic program. We are going to, anybody who donates, we're putting their name into the program so that we can thank them specifically. They're going to be kind of a collector's item, if you will, or a keepsake is maybe a better term, because we've got quotes from famous musicians and other celebrities that sat in specifically for this event. That's going to be a part of the program, and then your name will be in a special sponsor section. So if you're interested, find out more at corningtwang.com. corningtwang.com. You don't have a lot more time to donate, but I know a lot of you have been along for this long journey. You've been with us from the beginning, and I know that you would want to show your support and want to be a part of it because you've supported us the whole time, so I do appreciate it. All right, let's talk. Yeah, should I take a break? Yeah, let's talk Frankie Focus when we come back, and then we have quite a few other New York State updates. Feel free to weigh in on any of these issues that we've been mentioning. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the mayoral race because, though I do think there are new updates on that are worth mentioning that I think are important, like some of the polling numbers, what's happening with Adams and Cuomo and all of that. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
William Mattar has earned a reputation for being a straight shooter.
Because I am a straight shooter.
For being honest.
Here's what we're willing to pay.
Because I am honest.
For winning a lot.
Because we win a lot.
If you've been injured in a motor vehicle accident, it matters who you hire. It matters in the experience as well as the results. Call William Mattar. Visit williammattar.com.
Steuben County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 annual implementation plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.
You can just keep watching and scrolling, and the world will still feel like it's falling apart.
Widespread misalignment.
Highest hospitalization to evacuation in the West. Forced labor.
Or you can take action by joining a movement that's creating real and lasting change instead. Partnering with communities around the globe to help uproot poverty and plant seeds of hope for a brighter tomorrow. Because at World Vision, we believe that no situation is hopeless. Join a movement that's changing the world for good.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. Okay, we've been talking about Frankie Focus, and Chris Churchill kind of made me laugh with his headline. There's not a lot of new news here, but Frankie Focus is the mascot for, it's really misguided because really it's obviously a mascot for younger kids. And younger kids aren't necessarily where the problem is when it comes to the cell phone bans in schools. Even defenders of the cell phone ban and even defenders of Hochul have been saying that. But Churchill kind of made me laugh by this. Put the phone away or Frankie Focus will invade your dreams. I showed you that picture of what Frankie Focus looks like yesterday. Let's see. Gritty is the Philadelphia Flyers mascot. Looks very much like Frankie Focus. He said, Frankie, if I may be informal, is a mascot newly unveiled by Governor Kathy Hochul, so not using the full name, Frankie Focus. He's a lime-colored monster with fuzzy hair, denture-perfect teeth, and beneath black glasses, bulging blue eyes. Hochul saying, I've got a friend here, one of my best friends who I want you to get to know. During an appearance in New York City, Frankie Focus. He's introduced here today for the very first time. He doesn't say a lot. He's kind of quiet. That's all right. That's all right. Frankie is Hochul's pick to replace Antonio Delgado as lieutenant governor. All right, I'm not going to blame Churchill for stealing our jokes, our statements here on this program, and doing so about a week late. Not going to criticize him. But I'm kidding, of course, although on second thought, I wouldn't rule it out. The governor might appreciate a loyal lieutenant who doesn't say much and won't challenge her in a Democrat primary. For now, Frankie is only helping tout New York's new ban on smartphones in schools. He suddenly appeared with Hochul for the first day of school at a middle school in Brooklyn. Frankie didn't arrive with a backstory, but he is on social media. He is very focused on learning in school, focused on the teachers, focused on making friends. In a related note, children across Brooklyn have since suffered several sleepless nights, terrified that Frankie is hiding under their beds or in their closet. Could that be the point? Put your phones away, kids, or Frankie will focus on starring in your nightmares. As if kids needed another reason to fear school, the governor's office says Frankie will be bopping around to classrooms and elsewhere to promote the new policy, which hasn't gone off to the smoothest start. As reported by Kathleen Moore, the Times Union education reporter, students at some local schools waited in long lines last week as teachers and administrators painstakingly checked bags to ensure that smartphones were turned off and stowed away. Many middle and high school schools require students to put their devices in a locked Yoder pouch. Alas, kids being kids, some students forgot their pouches on the first day of school, forcing administrators to come up with impromptu storage sites and adding to delays. Another issue, why would they get their own Yonder bag? Why don't they just, the one time at a concert I went to, that you return the Yonder bag, you get it there, you get your cell phone in it, when you leave, you return it. That's weird. But also adding to delays. Another issue, some students are stealing their classmates' pouches and absconding with the device inside. That's the wrong green monster. Frankie looks more like a Sasquatch than a muscled behemoth. And to the best of our knowledge, he doesn't fight crime or injustice. This lovable, gentle soul just helps kids focus. Hochul saying, for too long, students have sat in school with their cell phones in their hands, distracted, looking at TikTok videos. As Frankie bounced behind her with that goofy grin sewn on his face. This is a chance for you to learn, to make friends, to be in physical education class and talk to each other. To the extent there's resistance to the ban, it's coming from middle and high school students, which may make some wonder why Hochul is promoting the plan with an Elmo-style mascot, most likely to appeal to small children. You can almost hear the rolling of high schoolers' eyes. That isn't the only question raised by Frankie's sudden appearance. A few others. Which marketing guru birthed this idea? Who decided what Frankie would look like? Will the makers of Monsters Incorporated sue for copyright infringement? And most importantly, which Cuomo administration holdover is being forced to wear the suit? Wait, has a commissioner gone missing? Well, the governor's office says Frankie will be played mostly by volunteers, and the character grew at a negligible cost out of an animated campaign that advertised the smartphone ban. Characters like Frankie or, say, Mr. Matt have broad appeal, Hochul's spokesperson said. I suppose that's true, although the timing of Frankie's arrival may not be great, given the coming governor's race. It's only a matter of time before likely Republican challenger Elise Stefanik pastes the monster as a far-left Democrat employed by the worst governor in America to push a radical communist agenda on school children. Run, Frankie, run. Go back to the woods or wherever you came from. You don't need this headache. Be free. Okay, on that note, did you know that the state health department spent $1.2 billion for non-New York residents? That's non-New York residents. New Yorkers may have improperly paid $1.2 billion in Medicaid managed care payments for people who live out of state, according to a state comptroller's audit. This is after yesterday we learned that the film credit is up to, $1 billion in taxpayer funds? States are not allowed to pay Medicaid for non-residents under federal law. But the residencies of thousands of people may not have been thoroughly verified by the New York Department of Health, which manages and makes payments for New York's Medicaid program. The audit is the latest finding from State Comptroller Thomas P. DiNapoli and his office that identifies overspending in New York's Medicaid program. It covered the period between 2017 and 2024, and it comes as federal cuts to state Medicaid programs are coming in under the Trump administration. And, as Republicans allege, widespread fraud and wasteful spending, which is exactly what it sounds like. Nearly a third of New Yorkers receive assistance for health care through the state's Medicaid program. Anyway, we don't have to go through all the numbers here. Part of the $1.2 billion price tag, monthly payments that the Department of Health made to manage care plans totaling up to $509 million for over 155,000 members who may no longer be living in New York. So again, State Health Department spent $1.2 billion for non-New York residents. Okay, let's talk a little bit here. Before we talk about Mama Donnie, just as kind of an update as we near the 9/11 tributes. That is on tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, yes. There's that amazing one in Gang Mills in Irwin at 11 o'clock. Don't miss that. Out of New York City, I know that's something people keep a close eye on. The NYPD is probing an alleged bomb threat as it prepares to increase security presence at critical locations around the city ahead of the 24th anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks. There's the United Nations General Assembly, as well as the upcoming Jewish high holidays. Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch noted that while threats typically increase around the jam-packed weeks, bookended by the 9/11 anniversary, UN General Assembly, and Jewish high holidays, the department will take extra precaution this year. Specifically, the top cops of the NYPD will be monitoring threats to the Big Apple's critical infrastructure, including bridges and tunnels linking Queens and Manhattan. The connectors between the two boroughs were highlighted as a loosely planned target for a group of unidentified criminals. A vague threat that popped up on the NYPD and FBI's radar indicated passages between Manhattan and Queens were marked as possible intended targets for unspecified terror attacks in New York. The would-be attackers may have ties to Iran, they added, but there were no specifics about the timing or methods of the threats. An NYPD spokesman added that they were all unspecified, uncorroborated threats, but raised enough eyebrows to get some attention. As always, we take all threats seriously, and we are working with our federal partners through our Joint Terrorism Task Force as we investigate. I have an abundance of caution. We're surging resources, and you can expect to see an increased police presence at critical infrastructure locations. So just as an update. All right. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about Mama Donna. We do have some updates, kind of on the Democrat Party in general, as well as some updates on the Trump administration. Keep those comments coming in. Keep those waves coming in. And we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, don't go anywhere.
This isn't your father's library. Create with the 3D printer. Release your inner audio engineer or sewing machine riddles, all with your library card. Go to getyourlibrarycard.com today.
Lather, rinse, moisturize, repeat, and repeat. But it never feels like enough. It's not your products. It's your water. Hard water leaves a mineral residue that clogs pores and dries out hair. Culligan water softeners remove damaging minerals, revitalizing brittle hair and dry skin. Upgrade your shower and skincare routine with Culligan. Water you love.
This is a Sue the Collector consumer alert. Hi, my name is Jared Johnson with SueTheCollector.com. Did you know that repossessions are on the rise in America? If your car, truck, or motorcycle has been repossessed by an agent that broke a lock, assaulted you, or trespassed on your private property, you have rights. Call us for a free case review at 1-877-BAD-REPO. You pay nothing unless we win money for you. Call me now.
Is this your mom?
Yes.
And that's your dad?
Nope.
I'm the father.
Even if you're the father, you're lying.
My family does not like my boyfriend.
Solid family.
I've had enough of this. I'm not your mommy.
Now you're just talking crazy.
Don't do that. I'm not your auntie, I'm your mother.
Can't cross mama and come in here and get treated nice. Your case is dismissed and so are you.
Sundays. It's the best 2 hours of NFL coverage, starting with Fox NFL Kickoff at 11.
This is great TV.
It is caught! Then at noon, take it to the next level on Fox NFL Sunday.
This kid has it all.
Touchdown! America's #1 pregame show. The best NFL pregame shows are back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. Comment from a viewer: Hochul's congestion pricing is providing more victims for mass transportation. Interesting. We know that that's encouraging mass transportation, but in New York, let's talk about it. New York City. Mamdani holds a huge lead in the mayor's race, according to a Times Siena poll. This is getting trickier and trickier, folks. According to a poll released at 6 a.m. this morning at Emerson, Mamdani leads the field by 15 points. And even head-to-head, Mamdani beats Cuomo 47-40. Also in that Emerson poll, 66% of New Yorkers say New York City residents say tax the rich. So as the rich leave in that mass exodus, guess who gets to cover that bill? Because it's not as if Albany is going to cut back on any services and tighten their belts. So it's the residents to stay behind that will end up footing that bill as businesses, the rich, leave. Now, that was in the poll release this morning. Yesterday, similar numbers coming from Times Siena. Mamdani with 46, Cuomo with 24, Silwa with 15, and Eric Adams at 9%. So that's where we stand this morning. Curtis Silwa has vowed, this is coming from the New York Times, so I know we have some Silwa supporters out there. I don't want you to, I know it's a little biased, but I think it's worth reporting. Silwa vows to stay in the mayor's race despite the push to clear the field. Now, they're trying to say clear the field, and I'm just telling you what the news is reporting. They want Adams out, they want Silwa out, and then there's a chance in their mind that Cuomo, I mean, you're actually rooting for Cuomo in that scenario. Come on. Cuomo beats Mamdani. Now, I understand, you know what you get with Cuomo. It's not good, but it's not a socialist, is their mindset. But if you look at it, if it is a head-to-head matchup, Mamdani's still defeating him pretty soundly. Business leaders who hope Mr. Silwa, the Republican nominee, will suspend his campaign may find themselves disappointed. He said to the New York Times, no, 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 1,000 times no. With 8 weeks left in the race for New York City mayor, powerful interests, including New York City business leaders and advisors to President Trump, are feverishly trying to
trying to clear the field for a one-on-one matchup between Mamdani, the frontrunner, and Cuomo. But in an interview with the New York Times, Silwa said, no, 1,000 times no. I can't be bought. I can't be leased. I can't be rented. I'm not corruptible. Eric Adams says he is also staying put, but very few people believe him, according to Politico. Eric Adams' friends and foes agree the discussions swirling around the New York City mayor joining the Trump administration aren't done. Adams insisted Friday he'll remain in the mayoral race amid reports by Politico and others that he's talking about a federal post, including an ambassadorship to Saudi Arabia or a job with the Department of Housing and Urban Development. As a matter of fact, it is being reported, and it's anonymous sources, but it is coming from the New York Post, but take it with a grain of salt, that at Yankee Stadium on Thursday, we know that the president is going to be there, Mayor Eric Adams and President Trump could meet during the game instead of at the White House to have a conversation about Adams dropping out. Adam wants a face-to-face with Trump, who is set to attend the Yankees-Tigers matchup Thursday before he potentially takes the unprecedented step of ditching his campaign for a cushy job in the Republican administration. I don't know. I mean, Trump may be doing this. They may be talking about giving him some type of gig. But I don't see this being a winning effort because Adams is polling the least. I guess they know that Silwa won't drop out. But if you think about that, with those two out, Cuomo still doesn't win. So what did you do at the end of the day? Why even get involved in it? Because if Mamdani wins, I know you don't want a socialist in there, but if Mamdani wins, the criticism is then going to be put on Trump's shoulder and blame him that he didn't have enough say in his hometown. Anyway, I don't want to go into any more of Adams. Michael Goodwin says Eric Adams is in it to win it against diabolical far-left Mamdani in the New York City race. We'll talk a little bit more about this. Boy, I don't want to talk too much about the race, but it does kind of tie in with something else. But Michael Goodwin says the polls say Mayor Adams is a surefire loser, and wall-to-wall reports have him dropping out of the race or leaving City Hall to take a job with Trump. He tells me neither is true and that he has never spoken to the president about a job. They had an interview, and he said that quitting and defeat truly are far from his mind. I will finish my term. I will feel strong. I'm not giving up, he said. Now, Cuomo, it must be a little concerned because he tapped, I don't know about this, a veteran Democrat strategist as his new campaign manager. I guess he got rid of a couple people in his campaign. Greg Goldner is going to lead his New York City mayoral campaign. The last-ditch effort comes just 8 weeks out from Election Day. Cuomo has appointed Goldner as his new campaign manager. The Chicago-based operation has decades of experience leading Democrat campaigns for Rahm Emanuel, John Kerry, Vice President Al Gore, Barack Obama, and others. Greg is an experienced and strategic and operative as there is out there, said Emanuel. With decades of proven leadership experience, he'll provide a steady, effective hand on the team. Okay. Now, Chuck Schumer met with Mamdani. I'm going to tell you about that when we come back. I do have to take a short break. As a quick reminder, tomorrow on the program, we will have former Congressman, current Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski, a fan favorite to Frankly Speaking. He'll be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour, so you can get your questions to him ahead of time if you would like, or you can obviously write in during the program. Okay, we'll tell you what Chuck Schumer and the Mamdani meeting led to. We'll also talk a little bit about Chuck Schumer, how that piggybacks, and then a few other things. Just stay with us. A lot to cover. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Enjoy a taste of Finger Lakes at Hector Hideaway.
Dine inside or out on the deck for gorgeous lake views and pair your meal with a local wine, beer, or beverage. Visit us today at Hector Hideaway.
Stu Binney Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 annual implementation plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.
Livingston, Big Fox News, Southern Tier.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app.
For the touchdown!
Yeah, yours. Your teams. Your highlights. Your scores. Your stories. Just choose your favorites to get more of what you want.
To the end zone!
And of course, stream your teams live. The best part is free with your pay TV subscription.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Gang brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I thank you to the numerous viewers. I will be in full disclosure. I've always screwed up his name. I know there's two ways to say it. There's one right way to say it. There's two ways to get stuck in my head. And even though I have a 50-50 shot, I always say it wrong. So I appreciate those of you who corrected me. Sliwa. Yes, I do realize once I saw it spelled out like that you are 100% correct and I was wrong. It's just something that is always, I guess it's the spelling of it. Sliwa. So thank you to that. Hope I'm still, sounds right to me. Okay, comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I'm just wondering if there's a price tag on the Frankie Focus campaign. Just curious. Great question. No, there is a price tag. We just don't know what it is. Hochul and her office have not admitted to how much it costs. You've got to figure mascot costs. You've got the branding, the PR. There's a cartoon involved with it. You've got social media. So there is definitely a cost there. But keep in mind, in the New York State budget, there was I thought it was $13 million. Now it turns out it's $13.5 million set aside for the cell phone ban in schools. So maybe it was taken out of the $13.5 million. Coming from a different viewer, Ken writes in, you must have heard that Mamdani said about taxing the wealthy in New York City. He said they will be happy to pay more because conditions in New York City will be so much better, they won't want to leave. Yeah, and think about it. They can run to this city, run grocery stores. I know he said that. So yes, that is his winning argument. Now, Chuck Schumer met with Mamdani, saying we had a good meeting, we know each other well, and we're going to keep talking. But the takeaway from that is he refuses to endorse Mamdani leading Chuck Schumer. You've got, well, and I understand that with some of the radicalized, especially anti-Semitic views that Mamdani has pushed in the past. We had a good meeting. We know each other very well. We're good. We're going to keep talking. The meeting came just days after AOC called on members of the party to put your differences aside and endorse him. Because the biggest names, Hakeem Jeffries, Schumer, Hochul, others have not endorsed Mamdani. Now, I bring that up. Let's talk about Schumer for just a second. House Democrats' weekly caucus meeting was held yesterday. Apparently, at yesterday's meeting, it included a vent session towards none other than Chuck Schumer, specifically on his stance on government funding. House Democrats still feel like Schumer betrayed them back in March. Yes, they're still hanging on that by supporting a Republican funding measure that was almost unanimously opposed, and they're worried he will do it again. He realizes how bad it is to shut down the government, especially with their proposals, what they say about government shutdowns. Not to mention, midterm is coming up. There was an anticipatory anger rooted in what went down in March. Schumer is named explicitly, one House Democrat told Axios. The overriding concern was that the Senate Democrats will get cold feet, and I can't tell you the curse word about what they said about Schumer. A spokesperson for Schumer did not respond to a request for comment. He is in a lot of hot water. He's been getting a lot of criticism, a lot of pushback. They don't believe he is the right leader at a time when they want to push the resistance. He is seen as weak, kind of the establishment, old system of doing things. Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries have signaled they want a reversal of some health care provisions in the Big Beautiful Bill in exchange for Democrat votes. We'll see. We'll see where Schumer goes, but the Democrat Party is pushing back against the old guard, which is Chuck Schumer. And you've got to remember, his polling is as low as it's ever been. There's a really interesting piece by Betsy McKay at the New York Post. And her argument is fix our schools now, or there's a Mayor Zohran Mamdani in every city's future. Get ready for more candidates like Mamdani, avowed socialist, to surge in popularity across New York and the entire nation. Young people are buying into a fairy tale version of socialism promoted by the left-wing educational establishment that bears no resemblance to what history tells us socialism actually means. But again, I talked about this yesterday with those really scary numbers that Democrats overwhelmingly, 66% of Democrats support or have a positive view of socialism. So if you look at those numbers, it's a lack of education, to Ms. McKay's point, but it's also, I think, a narcissism that, yes, it's never worked before, but I can finally be the one that does it. We can finally be the one that gets it done. In school district after school district, we have ceded control of education to the far left, she writes. Now, she goes through all the numbers, but it's that these kids are being taught that socialism is a positive, that this is a good thing. They're not focused on, or in any way, shape, or form, given the bad stories of socialism. But what this all boils down to, union members and their stooges outgun parent groups to control local school board elections, and unions dominate statewide curriculum choices. That has to change fast, or the push for their phony vision of socialism, already dominant in our schools, will soon dominate at the ballot box as well. Mamdani is a red flag. Take heed, America. And Senator John Fetterman, we haven't heard from him in a little while, Democrat from Pennsylvania. He was asked about how Democrats view socialism favorably. He said, Fetterman shared how when he was in Croatia, he told people that some people in the Democrat Party are talking about socialism and asked their thoughts. He continued to explain how one guy expressed that socialism is the worst thing ever and warned that people would never want to live in a country that's socialist. So then they asked him about that poll. Do you think the messaging issues for a Democrat? He said, oh, that's great. It's a great question. I literally was in a former communist nation, and I asked that. Some people in my party, some of the lefties, are talking about socialism now. What do you think? And he's like, that's the worst thing ever. You would never want to live here. I've lived here through that kind of thing. We're going to need a reality check if we ever adopt any of those things. You know, like, you are morons. It's like it was a nightmare for us, and now we are a free market nation, and that was Croatia. All right, we got to take a short break. I got a crazy story to bring to you right down the road at Cornell University, so stay tuned for that. We'll be right back as we wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking after this.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Let's start making every day better with a Hesselson Swim Spa. Hesselson's has 6 different swim spas on display to choose from in all sizes and configurations. Exercise and swim year-round in your own backyard and start living a healthier lifestyle. But for 4 days only, this Wednesday through Saturday, save up to $10,000 on the in-stock swim spa model. Hesselson's also offers 0% interest financing options up to 5 years. Hesselson's is your locally owned and operated swim spa store since 1955. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
In a few words, Urkel, glasses, nerd. It pays to know your nerds. If you guys didn't get nerd with me sitting up here on this show, 25 words or less.
Weeknights at 5 and 5:30 on Big Fox.
If you are one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments. Why are Republicans pushing for the Democrat? What's wrong with Sliwa? I don't understand this. Do they really think that Cuomo is the guy? Are you kidding me? And don't forget Bill de Blasio was a communist, progressive, liberal, and a disaster. And he actually was a disaster, and he actually endorsed Mamdani. I don't understand the reasoning there either, and I don't think Cuomo beats him at this point. So I'm not really sure why many of them are getting behind Cuomo. I think they think it's a last-ditch effort against socialism. I don't know if it does it. All right, coming from a different viewer. All right, Democrats, shut down the government and see what that gets you. In my opinion, though I'm not sticking up for him, Schumer did you a favor by voting to fund the government. I think so, too. I think you're right. All right, I got to end on this note because I know we have... I don't know my headphones here. I know we have a lot of hunters out there. This is coming from Ithaca. So you're wondering where I'm going with this. At Cornell University, kind of known as a bastion of liberalism and kind of like hippie mindset, right? 2 students who have not been identified reportedly killed a young black bear and brought the animal to an undergraduate residence hall on North Campus on Saturday. The students skinned the carcass and packaged the meat, prompting complaints from fellow residents at some point over the weekend. This coming from, I think, Ithaca.org. Cornell officials said an official complaint was submitted to the Cornell University Police Department, and a police report was made, but no charges have been filed in connection with the incident. In a photo posted to social media, the partially skinned carcass can be seen atop a table draped with camouflage patterned tarp in what appears to be one of the building's shared kitchens. It was a smaller bear. In an email statement, Cornell said to the Ithaca Voice, that's who it was, 2 Cornell undergraduate students with valid New York State hunting licenses killed a bear lawfully over the weekend. The students brought the animal into a Cornell residence hall for processing on Saturday. This is where it gets interesting. Cornell's student code of conduct does not appear to address the transportation and processing or the storage of raw meat. Well, the storage of raw meat is a kind of a, why would that? So if you get hamburger, they're going to ban that. But I am kind of surprised. I guess they thought at Cornell there's no way this would ever happen. But yes, it does not appear to address in their code of conduct any type of processing from a successful day of hunting. The legal hunting season for black bears does not begin in this region of New York until October 1st this year, when bow hunting is first allowed, according to New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, which sets the state's hunting season parameters. Similarly, bear hunting season does not open in nearby Pennsylvania until September 20th. New York does, however, allow early bear hunting in the Catskill Mountains between September 6th and September 21st. Though according to state regulators, hunters may not shoot a cub or bear that should be known to be a cub. A spokesman for the DEC told Ithaca Voice in a statement that the matter has been reported and investigated and no wrongdoing was found, at least under their purview. Upon investigation, the DEC determined that the bear, approximately 120 pounds, was lawfully taken in DC's Region 4, and there's no violation of the environmental conservation law. Needless to say, Cornell senior and Ithaca Common Council member said today nearly everyone I've spoken to was talking about the bear skinning. No one has seen touchdown lately, referencing Cornell University's mascot, Big Red Bear. Anyway, a photo obtained by the Ithaca Voice shows a refrigerator door full of raw meat packed in Ziploc freezer bags, apparently taken after the students had finished processing the animal. It's unclear whether or not the meat in question is of that origin. That's a perfect way to end on an oddball story. Join us tomorrow. Former Congressman, current Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski will be our guest. And I would just ask you to join us every weekday morning, starting at 6 for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow. I look forward to it already.
Steuben County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 Annual Implementation Plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.